I've been able to see the other world, hear what people think, other than what they say. I've been able to see people's souls since I was born. I was born conscious. I remember having a decision before I ever entered my mother's womb around choosing my mom and my dad, and were they acceptable? I remember not being forced to do it, but really having a choice. I chose very ordinary folks that had a hardware store. I was raised by ordinary, non-spiritual, non-mystical kind of folks. I'm grateful for this. For years, I have said, thank you, God. I'm really grateful for my whole life. My parents worked very hard. I had a brother who also was mystical. When my brother and I started doing strange little things, they were very kind to us. I remember, and my mother remembers, I would call out at night, and this would be when I was just entering puberty. She'd come to my room and I would be holding the dresser drawer, but dead asleep. And I would have pulled all the dresser drawer out and I'd be holding it dead asleep. She'd take the dresser drawer, put it back in, lead me back to bed, and then she would start talking to me and I would be dead asleep. She said the things she could ask me, no child should know. I was acting as a trance psychic. My parents, of course, would not have known about Edgar Cayce or trance psychics or any of these things. This used to happen a lot. She just continued to put the dresser drawer back and treat it as if it was normal.
Hello and welcome to another episode of AwakenToJoy. I am Shem.
Je suis Omondi.
And today we have a special guest, and it's Tanis Helliwell, author, mystic, and so much more. So I will let her introduce herself, but hi Tanis.
Hi, Tanis.
Well, hi, folks. So you're in the UK and I'm in Canada, and it's great to have a talk with you today. And before I came on, we had a talk for about half an hour, just getting to know each other more. So thanks for having me. And how to introduce myself? Well, here I'm here.
Yes, you are. Hopefully through this conversation, people just get at least a glimpse into the wonderful and mystical life that you have led. We will touch on everything that we can for right now. So you've been able to see what people would consider the unseen since childhood, and it's brought you along this wonderful journey. And now you have your new memoir about it, Life of a Mystic. So looking back, how was growing up for you? How were some of your experiences, and how did it lead you to here where you're now sharing your story about it?
Well, as you say, I've been able to see the other world and to hear what people think, other than what they say. I've been able to see people's souls since I was born. I was born conscious. I remember having a decision before I ever entered my mother's womb around choosing my mom and my dad, and were they acceptable? I remember not being forced to do it, but really having a choice. And I chose very ordinary folks that had a hardware store. So I was raised by ordinary, non-spiritual, non-mystical kind of folks. And I'm grateful for this. Every day now, and for years, I have said, thank you, God. And I am really grateful for my whole life. My parents worked very hard. They didn't fight. They didn't abuse us. I had a brother who also was mystical. And when my brother and I started doing strange little things, they were very kind kind to us. And I'll just give you an example of one of the things that I used to do, shall I?
Sure.
Okay, I remember, and my mother remembers, that I would call out at night, and this would be when I was just entering puberty, and she'd come to my room, and I would be holding the dresser drawer, but dead asleep. And I would have pulled all the dresser drawer out, and I'd be holding it dead asleep. And so she'd take the dresser drawer, put it back in, lead me back to bed, and then she would start talking to me, and I would be dead asleep. And she said the things that she could ask me, and no child should know. So I was acting as a trance psychic. But my parents, of course, would not have known about Edgar Cayce or trance psychics or any of these things. And this used to happen a lot. She just continued to put the dresser drawer back and treat it as if it was normal, that this was a normal thing that I could do. And I'll tell you another thing, and I tell this story often, so it will be boring for people who've heard me on other podcasts. But I would be in my bed, and my mom and dad would be in the living room, and the doors would be closed. And I'd think to myself, I wonder what they're doing. What are they talking about? So I'd leave my body, I'd travel, I'd eavesdrop on their conversation, I'd pop back into my body, and then I would shout out the answers to what they were talking about. And then I'd leave my body, travel out, and see, and they'd be saying, how could she hear us? How could she hear us? And then I'd come back to my body, and they'd yell out, big ears. So the joke in my family was that I had acute hearing. And of course, I never told them anything other. So I had my secret life because by then, from maybe age 6 or something, I realized other people didn't always have these secret lives. And so I kept it all secret. In fact, I worked as a high school teacher. I worked in the corporate world as a management consultant for 35 years. And then weekends I would do my spiritual workshops. And so I never was talking about my own gifts. And when I wrote my autobiography, then it was the first time that I actually came clean and put it all there, um, about all of these things. I've just lived a secret life.
What was it being a teacher or being in corporate where you'd have to negotiate working with people? Would you use your gifts to know what you need to know to maneuver, because they're your abilities, and just as anyone would use, you know, any other ability they have, whether they're book smart or whether they are good at math or English, whatever it may be. How would that work for you when you were teaching people, when you were in the corporate world?
Well, when people think, what is a mystic? What it is you are highly intuitive, highly intuitive. And I think that intuition is a perfectly, human gift. Just like you said, it's something that we can all develop. It's like if we're wanting to be a tennis pro, we get on the court and we start practicing. So I have it naturally, but I have also developed it. But I have my own code of ethics that I would developed as a child. And that is, I only listen to people as deeply as they would want to be heard, or look as deeply as they would want to be seen. So that I think that's very important, to have a code of ethics. And My parents used to say, oh, Tanis would trust anyone. You could, sell her the book Brooklyn Bridge. She's so trusting. But what it is I always see people's souls. And and their souls are all beautiful. So even when I am in what other people would term dangerous situations, no harm comes to me.
Yeah. And the code of ethics is so important.
Yeah.
And I do try to say that with people when it comes to them accessing their abilities. I do intuitive readings for people. And I do say, I'm going to stop here. And they're like, oh, and I said, unless you want to go further. I just know my line, and I was pretty tapped in when I was a child as well. So I learned very quickly, don't tell people that they're pregnant in front of other people. And you just go, and you're like, you know what? Note to self, no. Okay, so it's very refreshing to hear that being said by someone like you who is a mystic. It's refreshing because I think it's something that isn't often discussed, but is practiced. It's practiced once you really are choosing this path. Yeah.
Yes. And we can work in the real world. And, I pay my taxes, I drive a car. People think, well, if you're going to be a mystic or really spiritual, you could become non functional. Well, no. Or if you are so sensitive, then you have to put on a whole bunch of extra weight to pad yourself from other people. No. Um,
No, thank you.
yeah, we don't. If we're really authentic, and we can be authentic without talking about, it's like, how many parts of ourselves do we want to bring out and lay on the table? And we can make a decision, and it's all authentic, right? It's like I can be authentically me, whether people know I'm a mystic or I'm not, right? And that's what it's about, I think, rather than thinking about, hiding something. It's just saying it's not appropriate to talk about or share this right now with this person.
Yeah.
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 You mentioned, well, I don't know if it's sleepwalking or talking in your sleep when you were a child. And because I think that many people go through that, but it's overlooked. I mean, I've gone through that myself. So when you mentioned that your parents seemed to be very open-minded as far as knowing even how to kind of interact with you at that time.
Well, I think my mom, being Irish, she had second sight. So it came down through her, this particular gift. And in the hardware store, I saw her using it, but secretly. I remember a customer coming in, and she saying to him, oh, you want a foil roasting pan? And he said, how did you know? Oh, I was just cleaning them. They're on my mind. She hadn't been cleaning them. They weren't on her mind, right? So she used to always cover herself. So she never talked to me ever about this particular thing. But I think because she had it, she was open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that explains everything.
That explains everything. It sounds like you picked well when you picked perfect match.
Yeah.
Perfect match.
They were good folks.
Alongside The Life of a Mystic, the book, you also have something new coming up as well that we're really interested in you sharing with us. It's the soul's call. And I think that when people are on this journey, they get so many questions around that. What their purpose is, what am I meant to do? Who am I? These questions come up often for people. So can you explain your work around this now and the new course that's coming through?
Yeah, sure. I'm a psychotherapist by training, and I even had a therapy practice specializing in spiritual transformation for 16 years. And that's what I do with all of my courses. They're all based on helping people to discover what is there as we are speaking about it, their authentic selves. And their authentic self, I call it the soul infused personality. So, whoa,
I
lots of
like it.
words there. But like we've all got a different personality, right? Which is perfect for this particular lifetime to fulfill our purpose, whatever it is, whether we're male or female or how old we are or where we're born, anything. So we've got the right personality that our soul wants to use. And so we have to come to terms with emptying out all of our wounds and our fears and our cultural biases and anything that happened in our religion or with our parents. We have to get rid of this to really be our authentic self that our soul can really use. So that's what Answer Your Soul's Call helps people to focus and concentrate on, well, what is calling you right now? Not from here about, oh, I should do this, it will make me money. Oh, I should do this, my parents would be proud. Oh, I should do this, it would, fit with my age, whatever it is. Well, duh. What does this say? What is this? What does this feel passionate about? What does this get excited about? What does this have some joy about? And so that's what Answer Your Soul's Call, because that's our soul trying to, hey, are you listening to me? Hey. And, there's no wrong steps. People think, oh, I've got to get it right. Might be my last chance. Oh, there's no last chance. If you're still alive, you're still learning and growing. You can still change. So there's no last chance. And this thing about, I've got to get it right. Well, you're not going to get it right totally if you're trying something new. No one gets it right when they try something new. But you just take the first step and, and then all of a sudden you see the second step. People think if I don't see the final step, step 10 now, I'm not going to start.
I think that is what I think most people talk to us about, what's holding them back, because a lot of the time, even if they share, okay, this is my dream, this is my calling, like I wake up and that's what, I would really love to do. But then when they share these loves with the people around them, it's either they demand steps or steps are demanded of them. So what's that going to lead to then? And is that going to bring us money? And like you said, they need to see what the finality is. And if you dare to say, I actually don't know the answer to any of those things, but I just want to do it. Well, panic à bord. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, have you lost the plot? What are you talking about? How can you not know? Why would you start something and not know? So for those who are actually going through that process, for you, how do you help people navigate to recognize when it's genuinely their soul speaking to them, or just that side of them that wants to appease their family or their traditions, or their mind that says, nah, I don't think that's a good idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we give people a workbook and divide things into like 5 modules. And so they look at their goal and what their soul wants and what their personality wants. And then you look at, is what you think you want to do, is it realistic? There are certain things, is it realistic? Is it doable? Like if right now I said, well, I'd like to go and climb the Himalayas, or what? Now that is not realistic. It's not doable in this life, right? So you have to put it through some, just some realistic, doable, concrete, can you do these things? And sometimes you end up with a compromise. Like if you said you were artists, well, maybe and maybe not, you can make a living as being a professional artist full time. There's no reason though you can't start and try and do it at night or do it on weekends and go to art galleries and put things on the World Wide Web and try to learn how to market. You can do all that, and then spirit will decide if you are going to be Van Gogh.
Yeah, I think it's the part that it's difficult for many to kind of be in acceptance of. The self that's in the avatar now with the distortions can't always make the final decision. It feels a bit like out of our hands. And I think that it's the part that often people need help with, to just let go, to surrender. That's the part that is really scary. Because like you say, it's spirit decides, and it's spirit decides. So that kind of scares people sometimes, I think.
Yeah, that is very true. People don't like to be out of control. And yet, ultimately, we are all out of control. We're all in spirit's hands. And, I find that the more that people try to go into the unknown and take steps there, that it grows how much out of control we can be, until you've taken steps here, and you're growing, and you can act in a fearless manner.
Yeah.
But you have to start.
Yeah. What you've also touched on, between what both of you just said, is also the path that people miss when they're saying, how do I go about using my intuition more? It's that trustful with spirit that you have to just be like, okay, baby steps. They said this doesn't feel good. Don't go in the store. Maybe today I listen. And then you listen and it works out. And then the next day you listen and it works out. And it's just this, for some people it's baby steps, that's true, but it's that trust. And I think once they trust enough and then totally surrender, they realize it was always a trustless system. There's no need for the trust, because it just tells you, it speaks to you, which is very mystical.
Yes.
Which is very mystical. But what we've also enjoyed about what you've done and how your story unfolds is how you've joined mysticism and science. The studies you've done, the people you've worked with, just to name a few, how has that journey been for you as well? Because I feel like you've been able to balance the two so well. Like your work with Greg Braden, I think that was great. Gene Houston, it's like all of these big names in what people would say the logical mind is, the scientific mind is, and then here you are as well. It's like you're very much grounded in what it is that you do. How can you explain that to people, though you're a living example of it, but how would you explain that to people who are very logical minded or technical minded and would say, okay, all of this mysticism stuff is not for me? How would you explain that balance?
Well, I'm no longer working as a management consultant, but as I said, I did it for 35 years. And if you do that, I worked for IBM. I worked for McKinsey, leading their annual retreats. I was working for banks, chartered accountants, really left brain factual people. And I found that they were very willing to go with things that I would propose that they would do. And a couple of reasons for it. One was, like, I would do courses called Managing Stress or Managing Change, these kinds of things. So if you're doing a course on managing stress, I would give them facts and figures about type A personalities having more heart attacks than type B personalities, for example. And type A personalities, and here are the numbers, have more fatal heart attacks than type B personalities. And then I would say, and now I'm going to show you how you can turn into more of a type B personality. And I would teach them meditation. So I'd have people in 3-piece suits with ties lying on the floor with their blanket and their pillow. And people would say, how did you do it? Well, one was I give them all the facts and figures, and I look normal and I talk normal. And then the second thing is, I never thought they wouldn't do it. You see, it doesn't enter my mind that people won't want to get better.
Yeah.
So you've been saying basically you worked for 30 years, is that right?
35.
35 years, exactly. So it's quite of a long time. So it's now only normal for me to ask you, do you feel that science and mysticism are beginning to meet now? Because we see now on YouTube, it's very common, people that may work in science talking about these things. Or do you think that it's always been like that, but it wasn't publicized so much?
Both. I think that the frequency of the earth is rising, that our whole solar system is going into a rise in consciousness, and that we, being cells in the body of the earth, obviously we're being affected, and we are also moving to a higher frequency where people are starting to see more elementals, more angels, more UFOs, because we're entering these higher frequencies, which mystics could always travel to, you see? So it is our time, and we've always had these dimensions. It's people just couldn't see them.
And I think that this is what is going to be the great unfolding for people. I'm very excited
Isn't it
about it.
wonderful?
Yeah, I'm excited because I'm like, finally, like, you've seen them, right? They're not bad, are they? Just before we started the interview, we were just chatting away. We were talking about people's misconceptions about a lot of these elementals. So we know that you've had a long-standing relationship with Lloyd, the Leprechaun. And we were talking about people's prejudgment, misconceptions about leprechauns and all this, a few elementals, to name a few. What have you found over the years that is in straight contradiction to what people just automatically believe when they hear names like trolls, goblins, elves, fairies, and so on, leprechauns? How has your knowing and your connection with the elementals been that have been in you're looking forward to people seeing the other side of?
Well, when I first met Lloyd, I was really young. I was only in my 30s. When I went through this. So, and he asked me to, when I lived in a haunted cottage in Ireland, and he taught me all about elementals. That's what they call nature spirits, which could be elves or goblins or trolls or brownies, all of these kinds of elementals. And all over the world, First Nations cultures talk about the little people. They all have these stories. So it's not just Ireland. and so I had my experience with him. And up until then, I thought I would only be working with human beings. So that was kind of new. So I continued to work with human beings, but he wanted me to wait 10 years to write the book, Summer with the Leprechauns, which I did. And when I asked him why, he said, people are only now starting to believe in angels. So we have to wait for the right time. And this is the other important thing, is timing. People often have their timing wrong, and they have to wait for something. And so I had to wait for 10 years to write the book, which he wanted, by the way. But that was funny, because that was actually my third book, not my first book. My first book I wrote when I was only in my mid-30s. It was called Decoding Your Destiny, Keys to Mankind's Spiritual Evolution. That's what it was called. And that was only in my mid-30s that I was asked to write that. And my second book was a mainstream book called Take Your Soul to Work, which was a Canadian bestseller. And I know. So it was like mainstream and spiritual.
It's you've been living that balance for so long now. I'm so glad that now you're like a living example of how people could go about it, because I keep on telling people, like, I know I do readings, but I also change many nappies a day. I love biscuits. I love having a packet of crisps. Like, it's not going to be all, beads and wind chimes and whatever. I live life. I enjoy the human experience as well. And to see you speak about it and that you've written about it as well, I think it would be important for people to go and read your books in the way that you writ them as well. As they go on their journey, they'll see that unfolding, the way that that balance could be practiced in their own lives as well. It's really it's vital right now, because I think that people feel like, okay, I'm having this awakening, now I have to be a Reiki master, or I'm having this awakening, now I have to go all in on some sort of spiritual job or whatever it is. And you've just done both and just been like, yeah, I'm doing both.
Yeah. Yes, and they feed each other too, Shem, because once again, I was raised in a very ordinary, middle class with people who had a hardware store, family. And I was grateful that I got this very normal, ordinary childhood. And then I was what I'm trying to say is this working in the real normal world can actually mature the personality. so that it becomes a better, stronger vessel for the soul to contain the Reiki master or the psychic or the artist. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and. In fact, I think it's meant to be a both and. Unless you're born in northern India near the Himalayas and decide to go and find Babaji and live in a cave. You know, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Omondi, what were you going to say?
No, I mean, I do resonate with what you're saying in terms of going through these experiences in order for us to adjust, even our body, our physical body. I mean, growing up, I remember like had few things happening and I wasn't ready. It was just actually borderline traumatic. So it's just now with all the experiences, I'm like beginning to understand like, okay, that was necessary for me to experience life, and you know, and I don't really worry about it. So I like the fact that you mentioned the fact that you could do normal stuff or what's seen as being normal, but that contribute to you to the other aspect of you. Find it very fascinating. And I was going to ask you a question as well about reality. I mean, your work challenges our conventional understanding of reality. You've got this book called Hybrids, and you're saying, so you think you're human. So, Tanis, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, that book, it's, I think, about number 6 in my books of how many books I've written. And, and you know who asked me to, I didn't decide to write that book. I was teaching in Germany, and I teach a lot in Europe. And all the students who were in the class, all the participants, I had been just talking briefly about the possibility we weren't all fully human and that we could be part angel or part dragon or part elemental, whatever. And, their eyes were twinkling. And they went down to lunch, and I was talking to some other participants still in the class. So I came down later, and as soon as they saw me, they started to laugh, and they said, "We have an assignment for you. You have to write a book. We've even got the title, Hybrid, so you think you're human." And I thought, this is so hilarious. I had no idea I was ever going to write a book. So I said, well, first of all, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to research all the myths of the world to see about, are dragons talked about in Japan and China? And are they the same ones that are talked about in the Mayans, and the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl? The feathered serpent. And is it the same dragon that, Christianity has St. George killing? Oh, there could be dragon hybrids. So I'll write about all this. And it was the same about I looked about, at dolphins, which in the Greeks always called them the people of the sea. And they're one of the hybrids. There are dolphins that come and they're human, but they were originally dolphins. And we know that the dolphins went into the sea early in our evolution. And that if you've ever seen a skeleton of dolphins, they've got all the finger bones, all the arm bones, the leg bones. They've got all the bones of a human. So earlier in our evolution, we split off into the land humans and the ocean humans. And we know that they have a more complex brain than the humans, and we measure intelligence based on brain complexity. And we also we measure intelligence based on body weight with brain size. And dolphins are at least as intelligent. by our own measurement.
Yeah.
As humans. So I looked at all the facts and figures and myths because I thought this is going out on a limb, really, to talk about this. I better try to get facts. You see, the same thing, because it creates a bridge. We've got a left brain and a right brain, so we actually do have a logical reasoning body over here, and we have an intuitive body over here, and they do talk to each other. So if you can get them both firing, then there's a much better chance people will be able to make the leap into believing this possibility.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and some people need that. And then once they've allowed themselves to see, oh, there is proof. Oh, that does make sense. Now they open the other side. It's like one floodgate feeds the other. It's lovely.
That's right. Yeah.
So, for the one that are new to this, according to you, what is an hybrid? What are we talking about exactly?
Okay, so we tend to think that we've only got this physical body that came down through our parents and our grandparents and our physical blood ancestors. And yet we know that we only know about between 3 and 6 of the whole DNA genetic code. And yet we're saying, oh, well, that's what we really are. Well, no, we're not. And this is what we're going to be discovering in this next 2,000 years of the Aquarian age. That, that we really have these other impulses, beings that have come from the stars, for example, to help with the evolution of the earth. Whether they're dragon beings or they're angels or they're the pan hybrid, which came from the Capricorn, Copernicus. All of these different myths have substance. And so it's looking at, I want people to allow the possibility that our myths are real and true and accurate for the time that they were created. And you could be an elemental hybrid. So many people are. A lot of people think I am an elemental hybrid because Lloyd is my friend. But in fact, I am not an elemental hybrid.
That's interesting.
So what hybrid are you? If you want to share.
I'm one of the 22. And and I'm a star being. And the secret is in my name. It's right there for anyone to see. That is my born name, Helliwell. So you can see which hybrid I am just by my name.
It's
Tanis is
it's
Egyptian, right? There's something there.
Tanis, and that's my birth name too. And Tanis is actually Cree, which is a First Nations in Canada, Cree. And I'm not Cree. As far as I know, I have no Cree blood. But my father, who was not the mystic, he was the English practical one. When my mom was 8 months pregnant, he had a vision and he said to my mom, if it's a girl, we have to call her Tanis. And mom was so like, wow, Eric, that's wow, so there I was, a girl. So they called me Tanis. And of course, they knew nothing about Egypt. They knew nothing. But my father worked with the Cree man in a factory when I was born. And the Cree man told him, oh, that name means my daughter. And then my dad took that back. So I grew up thinking my name meant my daughter in Cree, and it does. But when I was about, once again, maybe 40 years old or something, I was in a coffee shop in Alberta, Canada, and there was a man there, and I thought, that man, he's got a Thunderbird on his jacket, and I could tell he was First Nations, and he came over to my table. He said, "What are you drinking?" And he said, "I want to get one of them. They look good." So I told him, and I said, "And you, is that a Thunderbird you've got on your jacket?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm a Cree," and he said, "I'm elder, and I'm here teaching the Cree community." And he said, and I said, "Oh, I have a Cree name." And he said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's Tanis. It means my daughter." He said, "Oh," he said, "in our culture, we pronounce it Tanis, and it means daughter to the people. And it's the one we give spiritual ones." Isn't that interesting?
Yes, it is.
There's that layer as well. I mean, your dad's at work with somebody minding his own business, and then years later you find out that it's deeper than just an everyday. Yeah, the daughter. It's like it's
Layers.
layers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yet, Shem, though, this is an important thing about timing for folks. And that is that the universe unfolds with the right information at the right time. And we have to, and just like you said, Omondi, that you know now why some of the wounds in your earlier life happened, and it was to help you develop. And yeah, we have to trust this. And you mentioned trust earlier, Shem. We have to trust the timing of spirit.
Yeah, even if it doesn't make sense in that moment to you or to that side of your brain, you kind of have to be like, well, I guess you'll catch me on the rerun then, because this isn't making sense right now. And then, but when that moment it does, it's worth it, isn't it? It's just like, oh, yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, and when we die, because when we die, people think, what's going to happen? Well, there really is a life, and we will go to the frequency we're at when we die. So if we're thinking positive thoughts, great, we're going to a pretty good place. But if we're thinking negative thoughts, fearful thoughts, we're not going to such a great place. But when we die, how are we measured? We're not measured, did we get a PhD? Did we become a billionaire? We're not measured. We're measured based on, did we develop forgiveness? Did we develop compassion? Have we developed tolerance and patience? Have we developed taking ourselves not too seriously? These are the ways we're measured, and we measure ourselves. So even the hard things that people go through, as you're mentioning earlier about, a parent is there changing the dirty nappies, you say in England, and we say diapers here in Canada, but the dirty nappies, and they're thinking, oh, my life is passing, and all I do is, feed the kid and, change the nappies, and my life, nothing's happening. I can't be a Reiki master. Well, it's all about timing. Enjoy those children. That's part of what your purpose is. You brought 2 lives or 1 life or 5 lives into the world, to help develop them.
Yeah. And
what's wrong with that?
It's just, and then you always hear people saying, oh, they grow up so quickly. And I was like, exactly. So you better get in there while you can, because before you know it, you'll be knocking around and talking about yesterday and how they were here and how the house is so quiet and you don't know what to do with your time. And now you get to be that Reiki master you always wanted to be. So if you haven't already and did it part-time and just balanced it out and made it work, there's just so many possibilities. I think also what you've tapped into is the fact that there's this balance energetically and the multidimensionalness of life, you know, and what you just said as well about we get to judge ourselves about the things we've learned through our life. I think people are still in a place where they may think that the judgment comes from outside of themselves, or that evaluation of our experience here comes outside of themselves. So the mere fact that you speak about it being no, like you're going to pass on, and then you ask yourself these questions. How does that align with your ideas and your knowings around soul sovereignty as well, and that going within?
What do you mean by soul sovereignty?
I mean it in the idea that people get to choose. It's not chosen for you, because a lot of the struggle that some of our community feel they're going through is that life is happening to them. Things happen to them because of other people. And that's what brings them this sense of they could never be in control, or the idea that time is running away and it's because of this person or that person, or the way that they'll decide that they're going to move through traumas or any difficult moment. But just seeing that I can decide in any given moment. I get to choose. I get to balance myself. And something you said earlier about it never being an option for you, that you couldn't do the both or something wouldn't work out. That's a frequency of just simple sovereignty. Just no, it was never an option. For some people, it's still an option. It's still not seeing themselves as the creator of it all. How do you speak to people when they come to your courses and they want to do these things, but that's what they're still holding to?
Okay, well, thank you for explaining, and that was very clear. First of all, very simply, I believe that everything that we're given, we're given for a purpose by Spirit. So we got the right parents. We got all the right conditions to fulfill our purpose here. But we have free will, and so it's a both and again. So we've got the right package to fulfill our purpose, but we have free will with every opportunity that we're faced with to make a choice about how we're going to go about it. So that's the way I kind of see it. And to think that there's going to be a painless life is some sort of fantasy, right? If people like we're focusing on, all I've been able to accomplish. But I have to say, it's not without pain and hardship, like, duh. Like when I was a high school teacher, I was too radical and got let go. Let's just say I was before my time. And yet the superintendents really liked me, but my principal, who had just come out of the army, didn't like me. So anyway, that was painful. And then when I was 28 and I am a therapist and doing corporate work in the week, and then at night I'm doing past life regressions. And I became very famous overnight doing past life regressions, and was in all the major newspapers and on TV, or national TV, like the BBC, regressing announcers, and on radio. I'm 28 years old, 29 years old. And my corporate clients fired me for being too radical. And then I made a decision. If you start compromising who you really are, you will never stop. So I decided to continue doing the spiritual workshops, which until that point were only on the weekends, wondering where will the income come from, because I was giving that money to charity and living on my corporate money. And I lived without a calling card for 10 years. I had no calling card. I never called anyone. And that's when IBM came and all these other clients said they wanted me. So the universe didn't let it go, because I stayed true. I stayed true to the center. And I could mention tons of, painful things that have happened. But if we stay true to our authentic self and what we've been given to do at that moment, whether it's child raising or, working in a factory or whatever it is. I've worked in factories. I've worked picking fruit. I've done these things. I've worked as a waitress. I put myself through university working as a waitress. There's no bad job. There's no bad job. And just, it's just, people all want the same thing. We want to be loved and we want to be respected.
Absolutely.
And helped to fulfill our purpose. Isn't it true?
That's really
So
true.
true.
That's really, really true. And another thing something that seems to run through your work is the idea of remembering who we are, our authentic selves, and is remembering who we are part of answering the soul's call. And why is it important to you, like according to you?
Yes, that's why we're doing the course, Answer Your Soul's Call, because it is the same thing. Our authentic self is our soul. And it's using this particular vessel to speak through. And this is the right vessel. Like, I'm a short little person. I'm only, you 5'1.5". So I'm a short little person. I'm small. Why was I given this body? Because I'm non-threatening. And this is good. That's what Spirit wanted me to have, a good sense of humor, make people laugh, and be non-threatening. So I could get away with all this stuff.
That makes sense.
You see, soul's got the right idea. And so people have to celebrate their package, be proud of their package. This is the perfect package, and say, and even age-wise, I'm ancient now. I may have another 10 years and maybe not. But here, does it matter? We can be young or we can be old in our soul. Some people are old when they're 20 and they've stopped learning and growing.
It's funny that when you asked me about soul sovereignty, inside I first laughed, because I was like, you literally walk it. Every time you tell me about a story where you were like, nope, I have a choice here. I've got to just stay authentic to this. And you love your package and you embrace your life and you embrace the good and the bad, and you know it's all going to be on time, and it's all made for you, by you, in a perfect bow, and you look forward to the unfolding. It's like you embody sovereignty, soul sovereignty.
I love God, and I trust spirit. This has been a real treat being with both of you.
It really has been. We are going to just give you our quick closing question, which is, in your opinion, who are we and why are we here?
You mean human beings?
Or however they identify
Yes,
them.
human beings. I believe that we are gods in training, and that we're to be guardians of this beautiful planet. And all these wonderful, everything's evolving. Rocks and minerals are evolving, plants are evolving, trees are evolving, animals are evolving, and humans are evolving. And we are to be conscious co-creators with spirit, guardians of this beautiful planet. And those wonderful dolphins and whales are the humans in the water that can also work with us. They're co-creators too.
Wonderful. Yeah. Tanis, it has been so lovely having you and talking to you. Where can people find you, your books, your works? If they want to reach out for your course, where can they find you?
Well, you can go on my website, tanishelliwell.com, and you can also go on Amazon, of course, to get my books. And yes, my courses would be on there.
Right. It was lovely talking to you, and thank you to everyone who's been listening. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we will see you all soon. Much love and ciao.
Thank you, Tanis.
Much love.
Much love. Ciao.
Ciao.